Hi there, it's Stephanie with a Cabbage Patch doll ankle repair. I received this doll and it was in pretty rough shape with a few, almost the entire leg was popped, so all those stitches. So I'm starting with the ankle. This is my first video, and stay tuned for the others. I'm just doing them in smaller sections to have them divided out like that. So one thing to note with these repairs is that I think that when these dolls were made 30 years ago, they were done all in one fell swoop. So I believe that the workers would have stitched the toes first, and then the ankle, and then worked on the knee dimple, and then the back of the knee. And I believe that that's all one long thread that's done like that. So with this fella here, his ankle, it's not undone completely, but it's significantly looser than his other leg. So I wanted them to match. So I just thought I'd repair that part first. Now, by doing it this way and just cutting that off, I do run the risk of those toes coming undone, but I was kind of wiggling them around and they seem fairly taut, so I think I should be all right. This doll will be going into my collection, so if it was going to a child to be played with, I probably would maybe redo the toes at the same time, but for this I think we'll be all right. And I'm just building that knot on the end of the thread that I need. One thing here, please learn from my mistake, and when you're doing this, leave yourself a bit more of a tail at the end of that knot than I did. At least a couple of inches. That was my mistake, because then you would be able to tie it off with both ends rather than having to create a second knot to tie things off. So that would have helped me, and that's just a lesson learned. I'm still very new at all of this. I think this may be my third or fourth ankle repair, so I'm learning as I go. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So I'm just going through and following the original holes that are already in the fabric and as a guide. The stuffing can be quite dense, so I am using the table as my thimble, essentially, and just using that, pushing that down, and getting that through the stuffing. It's not easy, so and be careful if you do this technique. Please be careful and don't poke yourself in the finger. But it is a lot easier. I believe if you have a thimble, you could probably make faster work. So this is just the ankle part, and I'm verifying the tautness of the other to make sure that they match, or they look similar to each other. So I'm just going around a second time because the other one is done twice as well, and going through the same hole and coming out the other end. So doing the exact same thing and using my table as my thimble, just forcing that needle through. And I think that I'll be going over to my craft store and picking up a larger needle, or maybe a longer needle. This is just something that I had in my cross-stitch stash, so I'm not even certain what size it is. I'll try and find out and leave that in the information section on this posting. So I'm just going through, and not the same hole, but I'm going through just next to it here. And this is where, by going back to where we started, ideally I could have, if I had a longer tail at the end of that other thread, I could have just tied them together and it would have been fine. But because I didn't leave myself with any room there, I had to create a new knot. So this is just me struggling to get that knot as close to where the thread comes out as possible. And I do find if I use my nail and I just kind of gently pull on that and use my nail to keep the knot as close to the fabric as possible, it's a lot easier that way. And again, you want to make sure that that knot is a good size so it doesn't go through. You don't want to have to repair it again. So at least 3 or 4 times, I believe, depending on the thread that you're using. This is just my generic thread. It was gifted to me, and it's really strong, and seems to match most of the Cabbage Patch dolls that I have. Every now and again, if I have a doll with a different complexion, I'll go into my DMC stash and color match a few of them. So there we have it. It's not exactly perfect. It's probably a little too tight, but that may loosen up a little bit after a bit. So it still looks better than it did before. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.